In the early 1990s, the U.S. real estate market suffered its worst decline, kind of a real estate depression, in the history of the United States. And what caused that was a complete withdrawal of all investment capital from the real estate industry. There were no lenders. You literally could not get a loan. And it was in that moment that I was fortunate enough to have had some experience in securitization, in kind of being part of the group that brought securitization, credit securitization, to the mortgage market, and realized that it was through securitization, through bringing capital from the capital markets into real estate to fill that immense void, that I would be able to be part of and the solution to that problem at that time. I learned something extremely valuable in that moment. In that moment, when there was no competition, there were no other lenders but us, we could name the terms. We got extremely high yields. We were making incredible IRRs or returns, and we were taking really no risk. We were making 65% or 60% loan to value first mortgages on beaten up valuations. There was no downside to what we were doing, and the returns were astronomical. And so as I reflected upon that, being one of the very few people who lived through that experience of having money when nobody else did and having literally no competition, it dawned on me that this whole idea in finance about the relationship between risk and return can really be exactly the opposite of what people think, right? Most people, when they see advertised high yields, they assume that's very risky. And oftentimes they run away from that. And when they see very low yields, they assume this is probably very safe. Let me put some of this in my portfolio because I want safety of principal. I don't want to lose my money. Well, in reality, low yields can simply mean that there's tremendous competition for that investment. And that competition has driven yields lower and lower, and risk higher and higher. And sometimes, as was the case for me in the early 90s, when there's incredibly high yields to be had, there's no risk at all because there's no competition. Another good example would have been the real estate, and specifically the multifamily investment sector in 2017, 18, 19, 20, as cap rates went down to historical lows. So you were being forced to accept unlevered returns in the 2s and 3s for apartment buildings that we had never seen in our lives, in my life, and probably forever. And man, that was risky, it turned out. Now, multifamily properties across the country are averaged down close to 25% from their prior peaks. So it turned out that that was very risky, even though it was a very low yielding investment opportunity. Important to remember that the relationship between yield and risk is not always what you think it is.